Tonight, you're going to do something you didn't plan to do. You'll pick up your phone for one small reason, one message, one notification, one quick check, and then, somehow, it'll be 20 minutes later. Not because you're lazy, not because you have no discipline, but because the device in your hand is the most efficient behavior-shaping machine ever placed in a human environment. And the part that should bother you is this: you never agreed to be trained by it. People call it dopamine. They say you're addicted to dopamine. That's not quite right. The real mechanism is stranger and more controllable once you can finally see it. Because this isn't a story about your weakness. It's a story about a loop that starts as convenience and ends as compulsion. And once you understand how it works, you'll recognize it everywhere. Let's fix the biggest myth first. Dopamine is not simply the pleasure chemical. In the 1990s, neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz ran a now famous set of experiments measuring dopamine neuron activity in monkeys. When the monkey got an unexpected reward, like a sip of juice, dopamine activity spiked. But then something weird happened. If the monkey learned that a signal predicted the juice, like a light turning on, dopamine stopped spiking at the juice. It spiked at the signal. And if the signal appeared, but the juice didn't come, dopamine activity dropped. So dopamine isn't just, "this feels good." It's closer to, "something important might happen. Pay attention." It's a teaching signal, a motivation signal, a prediction signal, which means the strongest dopamine response often isn't the reward, it's the maybe. Maybe there's a message, maybe there's a like, maybe there's something new, and that maybe is where the trap lives. Long before smartphones, psychologists discovered something about behavior that should probably come with a warning label. In the mid-20th century, behaviorist B.F. Skinner built what became known as the Skinner box, a controlled environment where an animal could press a lever to get food. Here's what he found. If the animal got food every time it pressed the lever, it learned the behavior, and then it stabilized. But if the animal got food sometimes, unpredictably, something changed. The animal didn't press the lever less, it pressed it more, over and over, harder, longer, like it was trying to force the universe to pay out. This is called intermittent reinforcement, and one of the most powerful versions is the variable ratio schedule, the same reward logic behind slot machines. You don't pull the lever because it paid out last time. You pull it because it might pay out next time. That uncertainty doesn't weaken the habit, it cements it. Now hold on to that, because in a moment we're going to talk about a feature on your phone that uses the exact same behavioral mathematics. For most of human history, tools were passive. A hammer doesn't study your psychology. A book doesn't change itself to keep you staring at it longer. But the modern phone isn't just a tool. It's connected to a marketplace where human attention is the product. A platform doesn't get paid when you feel informed. It gets paid when you stay, when you refresh, when you tap one more time. And over the last 2 decades, a very specific field matured inside Silicon Valley. Persuasive technology, the science of shaping user behavior. At Stanford, researcher B.J. Fogg popularized models explaining how behavior can be engineered through prompts, ability, and motivation. This wasn't inherently evil, but when you combine that knowledge with ad-driven business models, the incentives get sharp. Because the question stops being, what helps the user, and becomes, what keeps the user? Here's the feature that acts like a slot machine lever. In 2009, developer Lauren Brichter popularized a gesture that felt magical. Pull to refresh. You drag the screen down, release, and something new appears. It's clean. It's satisfying. It feels like control. But psychologically, it does something subtle. It turns checking into a repeated action with uncertain reward. Sometimes you pull and nothing happened. Sometimes message. Sometimes drama. Sometimes validation. Your brain doesn't code that as a screen updated. It codes that as maybe, maybe, maybe. And every maybe is a tiny surge of attention. Dopamine's real specialty. The result is a behavior loop that can run without your permission. Now add the second ingredient. Remove the stopping point. Asa Raskin, a former design ethicist in the tech world, is often credited with popularizing infinite scroll in the mid-2000s. Before infinite scroll, content had edges. Pages ended. You reached the bottom. You got a natural moment where your brain could ask, "Am I done?" Infinite scroll deletes that moment. There's no bottom, no closure, no exit ramp. And then recommendation algorithms add the third ingredient. The feed starts learning what keeps you watching, not what makes you wiser, not what makes you calmer, what keeps you there. So you don't just have an endless stream. You have an endless stream that gets better at hooking you. There's a reason this works so well on us specifically. Humans are not just reward-driven. We are status and belonging-driven. For most of our evolutionary history, being rejected by your group wasn't a bad mood. It was danger. Isolation meant vulnerability. So when platforms attach metrics to social life, likes, views, replies, they aren't just giving you feedback. They're attaching numbers to belonging. And they make the delivery unpredictable. Maybe your post gets ignored. Maybe it takes off. Maybe someone replies with approval. Maybe someone humiliates you. That unpredictability matters because it makes your brain check again and again and again. This is why you can feel pulled to open an app even when you're not enjoying it. The loop is not pleasure, it's vigilance. Here's the most dangerous part of the dopamine trap. It makes you feel personally defective. You tell yourself, "I'm wasting my life. I have no self-control. Why can't I just stop?" But you are not fighting a neutral object. You're fighting a system that has been tested, optimized, and iterated against human psychology at planetary scale. If you feel like you can't stop, it's often because stopping is not a single decision. Stopping requires something modern platforms try hard to eliminate: friction. The same friction that used to exist naturally. End of page, store closing, TV episode ending, having to walk to the phone on the wall. The trap is a world where the next hit of novelty is always one thumb movement away. This is where people reach for dramatic solutions: dopamine detox, total abstinence, deleting everything overnight. But dopamine isn't poison. It's a normal learning signal. You don't need to erase it. You need to stop letting other people trigger it whenever they want. So here are practical, non-mystical moves designed around one principle: restore stopping points and friction. 1. Turn off non-human notifications. If it's not a real person and not time sensitive, it doesn't get to ring your nervous system like a bell. 2. Move the most addictive apps off your home screen. This sounds small, but adding 2 seconds of effort breaks automaticity. 3. Set stopping rules, not time goals. Instead of 10 minutes, use rules like, I stop after I respond to messages. I stop at the end of one video. I stop after reading one thread. Because your brain understands completion better than clocks. 4. Create phone-free transition zones. Bed, bathroom, meals, the first 30 minutes after waking. These are the moments your habits are easiest to write into you. 5. Make boredom legal again. Boredom is not a malfunction. It's the space where your mind begins generating its own thoughts instead of consuming someone else's. The dopamine trap isn't that technology exists. It's that technology learned how to operate you while pretending to serve you. It trained you with uncertainty. It removed your stopping cues. It tied your social identity to a scoreboard. And then, when it worked, it handed you the shame and said, "This is your fault." But the truth is simpler. A system was built to be hard to resist, and you were dropped into it without instruction, without consent, and without guardrails. The mice in Skinner's box didn't know they were being conditioned. You do, and that awareness is the one advantage you still have. Because the moment you can see the lever, you can decide when to stop pulling it.